got another edition of tying tips. Today we're going to go through selecting and working with Marabou. This is one material that is in the majority of the streamers that I tie. There's, for all intents and purposes, three different ways that I will use the Marabou. One is for, if you watched any of the streamer videos, for the tails. This is a dungeon right here. I'll use the Marabou for the tails, and we'll go into specifics on that here in a little bit. And then you can see right here, I have an overwing tied in. That's the second use that I'll have for the Marabou. And the third one is we'll wrap them Spay style like we do on this swimmy. And then there's a better look because there's some contrast in the color. There's a better look at the overwing that we're using right there. So wrapping them Spay style, like we do on the swimmy or the necklace or Miss October, whatever it may be. There's certain characteristics that you look for when you're selecting a Marabou. I mean, you don't want to just go through and pick whichever plume it is and start working with it. There are some that work better for different applications, and that's what we're going to try and go through a little bit today, along with tying in tails and why I go with 2 stacks over just the one. And we'll start with that. So when you're selecting your tails, there's characteristics that you look for. See how this is nice and even? Like everything up here, these are nice, straight, even tips. Easy to work with. They're not all curved. They're not, swimming all over the place on you. And for the majority of this, they're not busted up. The majority of it, when I work with these, this is what I work with right here, is just this tip section. This one I tied in as a whole. So I just threw it right over the top and I tied it in. I'm hoping that the camera picks up the majority of what I want to explain on this stuff. But like I said, we're starting with the tails here. And these are the ones that I look for when I'm tying in my tails. Like I said, nice, straight, even tips. And you want to try and stay away, like here's the stem right here in the center. See how it's not a big, wide, broad stem like you have with this one right here. And this one isn't even really that broad. It would still pass as a tail. I mean, it'll cover up, but some of them, they'll be real webbed out at the end, and it's really tough to get those to lay and act how you want. So I try and stay away from the really big webs. It's just easier for me to work with and easier for me to get consistency throughout my patterns. I tied this one in just as a big clump, okay? So just right like this. I threw it down over the top and I measured it out, threw it on the top and tied it in. Now I know the camera's not going to pick up all of these details here, but you can see as I'm peeling this back, one reason that I don't like to do that is you have all of these short fibers here that your tail is not consistent. You don't have a consistent length throughout your tail. The second reason I don't like to do that is because I like to throw internal flash in here, and if I went and I threw another stack of Marabou on top of this, that tail is just going to be out of control, and it's really going to create bulk where I don't want it. And the last reason that I don't really care to do this, and I'm going to really wrench down on this stuff right here. You can see I'm putting a ton of tension on this, and watch what I can do. You can just take this and spin it, because you're tying an entire clump of material down. Over time, that's going to spin on you. Your tail's going to be off to the side. You're going to cuss because you got to throw a fly away now if you're OCD like me, and just it's going to wind up being a bad day. So I tend to stay away from doing that for that reason. I'm just going to throw a quick knot in here and get this out of the vise. And if you've watched any of the other streamer videos, you already know how I tie my stuff in, but I want to just show you, for example, why I do it that way. Now, we'll just get a quick thread base down. There we go. Now, we'll go back to our other Marabou that we were going to tie in. Get everything nice and even. And it broke on me, but that's alright. We don't use that other stuff anyhow. We're just going to peel everything away. So we'll measure this out, get it in here, and you can see this is one plume and this other one was one plume. And it's so much more controlled, it's so much neater of an appearance. And then you can just go right through here, and you don't even really need to wrench down all that much on it, you know. And then just open loop this up to the front, and I'll hold the two next to one another, and you'll be able to see the difference in the bulk. And also, because I have my thread clamping down on the Marabou and I'm getting more of the hook, I'm not going to be rotating. I'm not going to fish a fly for, you know, 2 or 3 outings and then have it rotate on me and my Marabou's kicked off to the side and I have to constantly rotate it back. You can see, I mean, I'm pinching and I'm grabbing on this. I can't move that Marabou. It's not going anywhere. It's locked into place to where this one you can take and it spins on you. I mean, it's not good. And look at the difference in profile between the top one and the bottom one. So now when we go and throw our internal flash in there, you can take a second one, and we'll do this real quick just for argument's sake. If I can find what I'm looking for. I'll just take the clear. Normally I'd use gold, but it's buried somewhere in all my materials. My desk is a little bit of a mess right now. I've been tying like a madman lately. So we'll bring this around and set this in. I'm not going to explain what I do because you guys have seen it on all of the videos. Trim that off. And we'll get another piece here. Find another good tail. That looks good. Everything's nice and even. And then what I do is I just peel this back. And hopefully this one doesn't break on me so you're able to see what I do with this. And you just peel all these other fibers off. Right like that. So this is what you're working with right here. You still have your stem to work with. Everything's nice and clean. And you can throw this on top. And same thing, just work it right back. Give a good clamp or 2 on top of that. And then open loop this to the front. And there you have your Marabou tail. Now, with the 2 stacks, everything's nice and clean, everything is even, and you have essentially the same profile that you do with the 1 stack, but the difference is this isn't going to rotate on you as to where this has the potential to rotate. And you guys watched me tie this down. I mean, I really clamped down on this, but there's just too much material to get secured to the hook effectively. So I stay away from doing that, and I tie it with just the portion that I want in the tail. The rest of it can stay in. It's a minimal bulk. It builds a little bit of a body, but that's what I use this for. That covers our tails. The next thing that I look for, or the next thing that I use Marabou for a lot, is Spay wraps. You know, like I was showing on the swimmy here. There's 3 stacks right in here that are just wrapped, one right on top of the other. You start on your hook, you move it forward, you peel everything back, you give a couple of thread wraps on top of it, and it gives this nice, just wispy body that breathes in the water. There are certain things that I look for. Not every Marabou plume is a good plume for a Spay style wrap. So what I'm looking for, and let me zoom back in here, I don't know what I was thinking. So we'll get zoomed back in. What you're looking for in this is a thin stem. Now the stem being obviously the center, the spine, where all of your fibers are coming off of. And another thing that I like to look for is something that's nice and wispy. See how this will work. This will absolutely work for a Spay style Marabou plume. It's a little bit thinner than what I like, because you can see up at the end of the tips right here, it's thin. But that's all right. I mean, it's okay to work with. It will work. What I like is this wispy stuff right here, to where there's fibers coming off of the individual fibers. And I'll see if we can really get a good look at this here. I don't know how well it's going to work, but can you see the individual fibers coming off of the secondary fibers, off of the stem? That's what I really like. That gives you the profile, that gives you the swim that you're looking for in these Spay style wraps. Secondly, what I look for is a stem that stays thin to where there's a good portion that I can work with. So to figure that out, I take this and I just grab both ends of it and I bend it right here. You can see where the natural bend is. Come back and you bend this again. There's still a little bit of a natural bend right there, and here it's really rigid. Like I really have to push to get this stem to bend. So I come up from that and this is the portion that I'll work with right there. Now you guys watch my videos, I tie them in by the stem. You can tie them in by the tips, absolutely. Right like this, and then put your hackle pliers on this section and wrap it. I just like it this way a little bit better. That being said, when you tie it in this way, make sure that you have a stem up here that your hackle pliers are going to be able to grab onto. So right here, I'm on the stem. All of this stuff is free. It's going to be able to wrap around the hook, and I'm going to be able to use that as a Spay style. This one's a little bit shorter than I would like, but it would work. If you find one that, let me see, for example, like this one, it doesn't have a stem through the entirety, like right up here in the tips, it doesn't have a stem. So you're going to be grabbing onto individual fibers. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When you get wrapping this, because they are brittle, it's very easy to break off of that. So if you have a stem, it's easier to hang on to. It's going to move me into the third part, or the third use of Marabou that I consistently use with, on a regular basis. And that's the overwings. You can see this. This is a very wispy, very bulky plume of Marabou, and it's perfect for an overwing. It just adds that extra bulk when you lay it on top of your hook. It's going to give you more motion. I'll do it a lot on the dungeons, the silk kitties. Kelly started using the overwings years back. I'm not sure how far back, but same thing here. The overwing for the swimmy, it just gives a little bit more motion, a little bit more bulk to the fly. Peanut Envy's another one he did that on, and it honestly looks better and it swims better in my opinion. You could use this one for a tail. I mean, if you really stretched it, you're down to the end of the pack and you're like, man, I really need a tail. But you can see, I mean, it's a little bulkier than what I would like to use. And I purposely seek these out and I save them for overwings. And I throw these in individual packages. I'll mark them overwings as I'm going through. You know, I buy these in the ounce. You can see there's a ton of Marabou there. As I'm going through picking out my tails and as I'm tying, you know, I'll run across one and be like, oh, that's a good overwing, and I'll set it to the side, and then once I'm done tying, I'll throw that in the package. That way I have overwings and I don't have to sort through an entire ounce to find a good overwing that I want. What else am I missing here? So, the Marabou that I consistently buy is the blood coils. That's about all I really work with these days. The blood coils, and this is also a blood coil. It's Montana Fly Company's barred Marabou. You'll see I use that on, let me see here. I got an October right here. This is a Miss October, one of my patterns. I spay wrap these for extra bulk, and this quality, they sort through these very well. I mean, they're all high quality. Some of these within the ounce package, they are unusable. There's just, you know, they're all chewed up, they're uneven, and it's, I mean, you're getting an ounce of them. I mean, if you're able to use 3/4 of this pack, that's awesome, you know, it's great. And typically with this stuff, you are able to use the vast majority of it. But they do sell the X Select and what is it, the bugger packs, to where everything is, you know, like this right here. It's made for woolly bugger tails just to be bulky and wispy. And the problem with those is you get the real thick stems, and it's a one-trick pony. You can use it for a tail, and that's about it. Potentially an overwing, that would be a good overwing, but as far as spay goes, you're not going to be able to use them. So I go with the blood coils, and that way I'm able to get everything I need in one pack. It just takes a little bit of sorting through, but it also saves you some money. You know, the X Selects, I don't really see a benefit in them. They are longer and could be better for spay, you know, for a longer portion of it, but it seems, this is just my limited experience with it, the longer portions still wind up with the thick stem, and with the thick stem, when you go if you try to wrap that stem, it's going to split on you and that feather's going to be unusable. So I stick with the blood coil and pick out, as I just did here, as I explained everything, there's certain feathers that are better for certain applications. So hopefully you guys are able to get something out of this, and it wasn't just me running my mouth for 15-20 minutes, however long it was. But I hope this helps out, and if you guys have any further questions on it, leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. But thanks again for tuning in, and we will catch you Wednesday when we do the next fly. Thanks.